Hello everyone, in this tutorial you will learn how to be an API for chat application with Laravel. So no more waiting, let's dive right in. Before we start, make sure to smash the like button and subscribe as it really helps out the channel. Alright guys, so let's start. First let's look at our database Schema. Here we have 4 tables. One is user table, chat table, chat participant, and chat message. For one user, it can have many chat, and for each chat, it has many chat participant and many chat message. And each chat participant and chat message, it has relationship with our user here. Okay, let's go back to our Laravel project. So let's go back to our Laravel project. Right now I'm using current version is 9.30 and okay, so let's create 4 model. One is our user model. Oh, for user, it already have the default Laravel project, already have it, so we don't need to create it. So let's create another 3 models with migration. First, I'll create chat model with -m to create a migration along with this model. And we have chat participant, and we have chat message. Let's go back to our user migration. In here we have, let's look at our Schema again. We have username, email, password. Okay. Username, email, password. This one we don't need it. For our chat we have created by name is private. This one should be foreign ID. It has relationship with our user, so constraint with users. And chat, we have name is a string. This one should be nullable since this is a group chat. The name is required, but it is a private chat. We don't use the name here, so it is optional. And we have another boolean here. This is private. To check the chat is private or group chat, let's set this is private default to true. Okay, so now let's go to our chat participant. For chat participant, it is belong to our chat, so we're gonna have a chat ID here, constraint with our chat, and let's say cascade on delete. And for chat participant we also have user, so it's relationship with user ID. Constant with our users. Let's get on delete. Okay. And this one we have to make sure that the chat and the user is unique, so we must make the unique intake here with the chat ID and user ID. So now let's go to our chat message. Chat message we also have chat ID, so let's copy this to here and here, and we have another field called message. The message should be text and it can be null. After that, let's go to our model. First check our user model here. Let's clean up our user model. First we define our table. This should be users, and we can say our guard here fillable. It is either we can use either guard or fillable. For guard we can guard the ID field, so other field can be inserted. And in user, let's define our relationship here. In user we have many chat, so let's say public function chats, turn this as many chat with the created by. This one should return as many here. And let's go to our chat. For chat we have many participants. And we have many message too. The chat when we query, we also need the last message. So let's create a method here to get the last message. And here we return has1 with our chat message, and we get the latest by our updated add field. Let's go to our chat message. For chat we have the user. It belongs to the user. And we the chat message also belong to chat. When we create a chat message or update it, we want to update the chat model too, to display the recent updated chat on the top. So let's add a touch with our chat relationship here and make sure the chat model has a updated add field. And then let's go to our chat participant. So after that, let's migrate our migration. Make sure you create a database here. Let's say database is chat app APIs. And let's go to our database, create one database, chat app APIs. Okay, and then let's run our migration. Alright. Okay, let's move on to our auth controller. Let's create one controller. In this controller, we have 4 functions. We have register, we have login, we have login with token, and we have logout. For register, let's create a request. Let's call it request, register request. In the request, we have 2 fields. One is email. Email should be unique to user table with the email field, and the password we require, and we need the confirmation password too. This is a very basic one. First, we get the data from our request, and then we update the password with the hash. And then username. Our username, we can generate it with our email. The function here is just extract the string before the auth sign from email address, and we make it as our username. Then let's create a user. After that, we need to create a token, because when we register, we let the user log in directly. So let's return back the token. First, in Laravel, we have default authentication with sanctum. So to create it, we can just use our model with the create token, and make sure our user here extend authenticatable. So let's create our token name here. So let's say public function cons user token, and then we'll create it here, user. After that, I return back the response. So I'm gonna create 2 functions in our parent controller here. We have the success and error method. In here, I'm gonna copy paste out my code from previous video. In here, we just return back the data with the success is success to true, and we have some message here. For error, we send data to null and success is false, and some message. So let's return back our response here. We return back success with user is our user, and return by the token. To get the token from Sanctum, we use token and plan no suggestion here, plan take token. And the message, we should say user has been registered successfully. So let's say register a user. For login, let's create another request called login request. Login request is so simple. We just need to require email and password. To log in first, we need to check the user exists or not in our database. First, we get the data, validate, and then we check if the user get a user where our email equal to the email, and we get first. And then we check if the user is not exist. It means it's null. We return back the response, but here let's cut this to another function. Let's say private function is valid credential. This one, let's get the request here too. This one, let's return back the success to false, and then message, say invalid credential. And then if user exists, let's check our password. First we check with the hash check with the data password with the user password. Okay, if it's true, we return back the success to true. Oops, message. We don't need to send the message here, just return back the user. Okay, if its password is not matched, let's return back this one. And let's say password is not matched. Okay, so let's use it in our login function here. Let's say is valid. This is valid request. If our is valid success is not success, let's return by the response. Error response with the message. We can get a message from this one too. You should send the set tag code that relate to our situation here. But this one I'm just return that the entity is not accessible. And then if it is valid, we get the user from user from is valid, user here. Then we return then we generate the token again. After that, we return back the response. And then in our login with token, it's so simple. Just return back the auth user. Success auth user. And log in successfully. Okay, for logout, first we need to delete the current token. We can say here we can get the request, the token from user request here by using request token user, and we can access the current access token, and then we call delete method here, and then after that just return back the response. The response should be null because we don't have anything to send. Just say log out successfully. Log out user. Alright, so now our auth controller is finished. Let's go back to check our APIs. In here for auth, I'm gonna use prefix with auth, and then we have the prefix name too as auth. Group our route here with function. Okay, this one, then write our route here. Well, we have login route post with login, and then here we use our auth controller class. Remove this with the login method. Alright, so let's give it a name too. Say name login. Then let's copy this 3 times more with register, and with register, and another one with login with token. Method is login with token. So let's say login with token. Another one is logout. Logout. This one I usually use get method. Okay. For middleware, we have to assign some middleware here. For login with token, we need to have the authentication too. So let's define middleware here with default auth Laravel auth sanctum. Okay. And logout also require auth2. Okay, so now let's check our route. Okay, now we have a route here. Okay, to test this route is work or not, I'm gonna use Postman. Let's go open our Postman here. I'm gonna create a project, a collection, Flutter Chat API. In here, I'm gonna create one folder called authentication, and we have 4 endpoints here. Let's create 4 endpoints. Create a request. The first one is login. This one is post method, and in this collection I'm gonna add some variable. We call it base API, base URL API. Okay, so I will say TTP cost 80,000 and with slash API. Okay, so now let's go back to our login here. I'm gonna call that variable here base URL APIs. Okay, with our endpoint, let's check our endpoint. Auth login, and this one, let's our header must have the accept application JSON. Okay, so let's try it out. Oops, we not yet run the project yet. Let's run it first. Okay, let's test it again. Alright, so now we have the response here, email and password. So let's send back to our server here. Emails, hello, gmail.com. Password, hello. Okay, invalid credential. Okay, now let's copy this 4 times, 3 times also. And now we have register and login with token and logout. Logout here is get method. Say logout, login with token, register. Our register here need another parameter here, password confirmation. Hello one. Test it out first. Okay, not so much. Alright, now we have response and we have token here. The token here we can set it in public variable too. Let's say token here, and then in our login with token, we need token. We need the authentication, so we need to add the barrier token in here and our token here. Token here. Alright, it's work. Let's test it out. This one we don't need to send anything here. Just delete this and send. Alright, we got the user. It's work. And then we test our login here. password just now is hello. Okay, now it's observer, and then we test the logout. Logout also need the authentication here, barrier token. Test logout. Okay, logout successful. So our authentication route is working. Okay, so let's move on with our chat controller. First, we add a controller first. In this controller, we use route resource. So I'm gonna keep 3 methods only: index, show, and store. The update we don't need it, and destroy we don't need the delete. So for index, let's create a request too. Make request. Get chat request. This one we just need to define is private. If the user is required private or not. And then in our chat here, let's say first we get the data, request validated. Then we check the default one is private, and we check if the request has is private here request, and then we set the current private to request is private this. And then let's query our chat. We get only the chat that has the message. So let's say where has message with our last message. Check that out first, last message. Okay, and our chat message, how you use it. So we can get it here, last message dot user. Then we can get a participant too, participant, and the user in the participant. Sort it by updated end. In here we need to get a chat, only your chat. So let's create a scope to check the chat has the current user or not. Let's go back here. Let's say public function scope has participant. For scope, the first one is the query, and the second one we can pass the user ID here. We return the query back. Query where has participants, and then we query we use only the user ID. And then we can query subquery here where the user ID equal to user ID. We can use the scope here where has participant with the user ID. The user ID is auth user ID. And then for show, so method, let's write here first. So we can use the model binding, route model binding here, chat, and then we return back this one too with user and participant. This one we can load under the model here, so we don't need to query it again. Say load like this, and then return back the response. For our store method here, first we create a request, store chat request. In the request here we require three things. First is user ID. To make sure the user ID exists in our model, first we get the name of the class model. We say user model, get class with new user. Then we can validate it here. Exists with the model, user model with the field ID. Next we require name, but this one is nullable, and another one is private. In store method, first we get the data. I think here we can cut this one to another function. Let's say private function prepare store data, store chat request. This one we need to return back the user ID, the user that we gonna create the chat with, current user, and we need to return back the current user ID, and we return back the data. The user ID is the we get from request. User ID here. This one should be, we need to make sure it's integer, we pass it to int. Let's check our chat migration. We need created by, name, and is private. So in here we only need to remove the user ID here from data, and then we add back the created by with the user ID. Say auth user ID. Alright, in here we send back the user ID here. This one we can send back the other user ID, and that's one is the data that we need to insert to create our chart. This prepare store data here, we pass the request, and then we have three things here. First, to make sure the user is not create a chat by their own user, but we check if the current user ID is equal to the user ID or not. If it equal, we have to return back the error message. Alright, Let's check if you and other user has previous chat exist or not. Okay, another function here. Let's say get previous chat. We can pass back the let's get the other ID, user ID here. We can check if the current chat has you and other user as participant or not by doing so. Okay, and here we can get the previous chat here. Get previous chat by passing the other user ID. If the previous chat is not exist, we create a new chat. And then we create the participant within this chat model. To create it, we can just call relationship participants and call create many here. It takes two array as an array of the user. First we give the user is current user ID, and then another array is other user. Here to get the fresh new model, let's say call refresh on chat here and load the last message to user with the participant. Okay, after that let's return back the response. If the chat is already exists, let's say return success, and then previous chat, load the last message and participant. Okay. Okay, after that let's write our route. Right here I'm gonna this route need authentication too, so let's write it under middleware. This one we use route resource, API resource with the prefix chat, and our controller is chat controller, and our controller only has 3 methods, so we can use only here with index, store, and show. And let's check our route. Okay, our chat here. So to make sure our chat is working, let's go back to our Postman. Okay, in our Postman, let's create a new folder. Call it chat. And then in this chat, we have 3 requests. We have our endpoint is API and chat like this. Then let's send its test first. Okay, and authenticate. Our token, maybe our token is already logged out just now, so let's log in again. We need user ID. User ID 2 is not exist, so ID is invalid because we don't have the user 2 yet. So to test it, let's register a new user called hello1. Password is the same, ID 2. Okay, and then let's create chat with user ID 2. Okay, here it's failed here. Get chat is bool. I think wrong. We have the wrong return type. Get chat here is let's say mix. Test it again. Okay. Now it's work. Here it is shape. We get the chat here with the participant, 2 participants, and then we get single chat. The single chat is the get method with the chat and ID here. The ID we get ID1. Okay, and then let's get many chat. Just check the get and here chat to get all the chat here. Error again where we got typo. Maybe here. Okay. Alright. The chat here it return empty because we don't have the chat message yet. Because in here we get only the chat that has the message. So now our chat API is working. Let's go back to our Laravel project here and create a new controller. In chat message controller, we have 2 methods only. One is index, another one is store. Let's create a request first. Inside get message request, we need to have a chat ID, and chat ID must exist in our chat model chat table too. So let's to validate it. And we need to have the pagination too. When we scroll to top in our chat to load more chat message. So here let's get another page. The page is numeric, and the page size is the count chat message of each page. Page size. This one I will call it nullable because we can set the default on our server side here. In our index here, first we get the data from our request. Then we get the chat ID from data chat ID. And then you get the current page. And the page size. The page size here we can get the required page size, or if the user doesn't provide it, let's say 15. In our message, let's query our chat message here. We add the chat ID, call to chat ID. We sort it by created it. save it, get the user to inside the chat message, and then let's use the simple paginate. After that, we return only the data. Get collection. The get collection here is to get data from this message. Usually, this message contain many property, to like next URL, previous URL, etc. So we only need to get the data. So just call the get collection to get the data. For our store method here, let's create a new request. In store message request, we have a chat ID, okay. In our store message, first we get data from request, and then we set the user ID inside this data. And we can add a chat message. After that, we load. We can add it. We load user relationship user within this chat message. After that, we send a notification. Let's say to do send broadcast event to pusher, and send notification to one single service. Okay. After that, we return back our chat message here. Message has been sent successfully. This one should be use the observer actually to trigger when always the chat message is created. We use observer to fire this function to work, but in this tutorial, to make it simple, I will just write here. So this one I will implement it later after we create all our endpoint. Alright, let's go back to our APIs and create a route here. Before we go to Postman, let's create another controller here too. Is user controller. In this user controller, only have one method is index to get all the user. When in chat application we have a search function, search functionality to search the user and chat with that user. So let's just here I'm gonna just query all the user except the one who requests this. Now let's add the route here too. Okay, now we have all the route here. So let's test it our Postman. We need chat ID and page. Chat ID 1, page 1. This is get method, so we need to use it in the parameter here, not in the body. Chat ID and page. Okay, now it's work. And then create chat. Let's create chat message. Okay, we need chat ID, message, hello. Okay, now it's work. And then after we create a chat, let's query it here. It should work. Okay. And then we have another folder here. It's the user. Okay, here it is. Authenticate is the user ID 1, so it's only returned by the user ID 2. Okay, now everything is working. In the next video, you will learn how to integrate pusher and Mozingo with Laravel. So don't forget to like and subscribe for upcoming video. Thank you.